Welcome to Tales from Flat Space, a podcast of science fiction and fantasy by yours truly, Gina A. Pond. Just know that the stories in this podcast may contain content that could be disturbing to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Survey, Part 4, The Admiral, Chapter 29, Darren. Admiral, I thought you'd be interested in seeing the arrival of the Musashi, said Captain Lopez as I entered the bridge behind Cindy. I was amazed to see Cindy as awake and alert as she was, since she had taken Billy from the party to what the captain said was a bar crawl. She and Dee Dee dragged the poor lieutenant home around midnight and put him to bed. Out of mercy, I gave him the day off. He hadn't even woken up yet when I got the summons to the bridge. Well, if it'll be anything like your arrival, a few of the officers will need a change of clothes, I joked. That's probably not too far from the truth, she replied. Oh boy, I thought. Musashi Pickett signals last jump, Captain, said the actual comms officer. Tell Musashi-sensei we're ready for the show, Fred. Right. Done. I watched the view screen and suddenly a large section of the stars winked out. There seemed to be nothing on the screen. Is it there, Captain? I asked. Wait for it, she said with a grin. After a moment, red running lights lit up on the hull of a sleek black ship. It was smaller than the Lightbringer, but definitely had a menacing look to it. Oh my word, I said out loud. Captain of the McAuliffe calling, Captain, said the comms officer. Lopez chuckled. Put him through. Captain Lopez, I take it that's the ship you were waiting for? Doug asked. Yes, Captain Chang. This is the Musashi. They will be escorting our VIP to the Lightbringer shortly. The others on the bridge were trying really hard not to laugh. I could only imagine what the folks on the McAuliffe are thinking right now. I grinned to myself. Understood, Captain. Thank you for the confirmation. McAuliffe out. As the comms went off, I could see several of the officers silently laughing. Musashi sending Demon with escort, said Fred, with laughter in his voice. I think Sensei's showing off for the noobs, Captain. Well, yes, Lopez said, still looking at the screen. I looked up and I could see a black demon, the same size as the one I came in, with many smaller box-like ships in a sphere around it. They were black like the ship they came from, with similar red lights making them visible, yet menacing. They moved with the demon in a way a pilot could only dream of. Doug must be freaking out right now, I thought. I would be. I just stared at the scene in awe. Admiral? Asked Lopez. Oh, yes, Captain. I was just asking if you'd like to join me. Our guests will be waiting for us in the gardens. I nodded, tearing my eyes from the screen to follow Lopez off the bridge. We took the tram from the bridge section all the way to the university. We got off at the edge of the section and took a lift tube to the working level, where the gardens and other vegetation areas were. The large cylinder overhead that ran through the middle of the section loomed over everything, but with all the greenery around, one barely noticed it. We walked to an area that looked like a tram station and were met by an open version of the tram with a trailer attached. There were two younger adults there with gardening tools. They waved to the captain. Lucifer said you needed a lift to the gardens, Captain? One of them said. Yes, Mark, I take it you're heading that way, too, she said, motioning me to get into the seating area. Yep. Hi, Admiral. Welcome to the gardens, Mark said to me. I nodded in response. He continued. We have our apprentice time with Bob today. We're transferring some of the experimental trees from hydroponics, so we get to dig holes. Which of the trees are going in? Asked Lopez. One of Sneha's apple citrus trees. I swear she makes the weirdest stuff. Although she really deserves to get her PhD soon. She should be working on Hestia. Lopez nodded. Truly. Not sure she's interested in reproduction, though. Well, I bet it would be a fight between ship departments, Mark said. Is Nana really coming today? He asked. The captain nodded. There'll be story time later. The two youngsters lit up at that. Really? Can we come? It's been years, said Mark. Lopez laughed. Yes, 1400 in the Japanese garden. Just let the littlest get their cookies and milk first, okay? The tram stopped, and Mark and his friend jumped out of the back and picked up all their tools. Awesome! And yes, we know the drill. Nice meeting you, Admiral, he said, as they walked into the greenery. Story time? I asked, as the tram started up again. You'll see, she said, with a wide smile. The tram finally stopped next to a path leading to a Japanese-style garden. It was almost painfully perfect, with a zen sand garden, a pond, bridges, and fountains. It was astounding, and I told the captain so. I think so too, she said. The monk from Musashi who built this garden really instilled a sense of detail in the apprentice he was working with at the time, who is now the head gardener. He personally works on this garden. A lot of our scientists would welcome some genetic samples from Earth of animals and plants for the diversity of the gardens. The original scientists from Trinity had a decent collection for hydroponics purposes, but I think Yusuke would really like to have koi in the pond. I would guess that could be part of a technology exchange if we get to a point where we can discuss such things, I said. I hope so, Admiral. She walked through a stand of bamboo trees and out onto a meadow that had a large gazebo at one end. There were more of the samurai-looking security staff standing around the perimeter. Inside the gazebo was a table with a woman in a white headscarf sitting at it and another soldier putting out tea. The woman in the scarf said something to the server, who left. She poured water from a silver container into the teapot, then looked over to where we were. Lopez stopped. I'll leave you here, Admiral. She must have liked your dossier already if she's making you tea. I'll see you later. With that, she went back the way she came. I couldn't see the woman clearly from where I was, so I just took a deep breath and walked over to the gazebo. It felt like I was going towards something momentous, as if I was going to church rather than meeting a politician. As I got closer, I could see that she was a very old woman, possibly Indian. Oh, Lord Jesus, is this another of the original crew? I thought. She stood up as I reached the gazebo. Hello, Admiral Winters. It's good to meet you. I'm Dr. Kia Hassan. She held out her hand. My body seemed to remember protocol and shook her hand gently, but I felt like I was just run over by a truck. I froze, not really knowing what to say. She smiled gently and led me over to a chair. Please sit, Admiral. Let me make you some tea to soothe your nerves. I did as I was told. I think it's more shock than nerves, Dr. Hassan, I finally managed to say. Please, call me Kia. I don't usually stand on formalities these days. Besides, I only really get called doctor in professional settings. Did you know we never use those titles at Cambridge? It's just not done. I appreciated that at the time. She poured the tea and handed me a cup on a saucer. I put it down carefully since I didn't trust my hands not to shake. 3 shocks in less than a week made me very aware of my age. Then I suppose you should call me Darren? I'm used to my title, but I'm not as hard-nosed about it as some of the other brass. I took a sip of the dark, astringent tea. This is really good. Kia smiled. The biochemists had a competition to make me a blend that was even better than Earth's. Since we had tea as part of our food supplies, they were able to extract the genetic code and grow new varietals. This was the winner, and they cultivate it for me specially. It has become sort of a tradition with my children and grandchildren that I serve this to them when they are old enough to have adult conversations with their Nana Kia. I felt my cheeks grow hot. She reminded me so much of my Granny Jeanette that I felt like I was 10 years old again. It made me tear up a bit. I wiped my eyes with my napkin. Granny was right about her, I thought. Are you all right, Darren? She asked me gently. I'm sorry, it's just that you remind me of my Granny Jeanette just now. She always told me that you were very kind. Kia looked away for a moment. Jeanette. Jeanette Davis? I widened my eyes. You remember her? I asked. Oh, yes, of course. She was a brilliant programmer. She helped me install the first core and finish the code for the AIs on the way out to Trinity's final coordinates. I was saddened that she decided to go back to Earth, but I understood her reasons, one of which resulted in you being here now. She smiled widely and sipped her own tea. I'm relieved to know that those who went back survived. Most of them. Not all of them. From what Granny told me, the landing was rough, and not just the physical landing. A lot of them had to go into hiding or get asylum from other countries. Considering the politics at the time, that is unsurprising. She put down her teacup. It seems, though, while the Earth has survived and come to a semblance of peace, the old issues that caused us to leave the system are still there. We have long memories to go with our long lives, I even remember that we had to leave Earth early because there were bombings at all the major logistics and training sites. My husband, the captain, had to lock down the station and get us to Mars before we could contact Earth again. I weighed my words carefully, my mind finally recovering from the shock of meeting Dr. Hassan a bit. Yes, Kia, but we have come a long way since then, more than a lot of people thought we would. I'm here, aren't I? This is true, she said. We sat for a few minutes drinking our tea, looking out at the garden. My AI children are very perceptive, Darren, Kia said. While they don't fully understand human emotion, they are very good at predicting human behavior and tend to be exceptionally good at judging character. Lucifer, it seems, has taken a liking to you. From your dossier, Musashi is also impressed. The fact that Musashi would like to meet you is also telling. Your extensive study of Trinity Station and its history makes you the right person to negotiate with, as you see the possibilities in our situation rather than what can be exploited. Now that I've met you, I think it was Allah's will that it was you who led this mission. I looked at her, and she met my eyes with a stare that seemed to go straight into my soul. Granny Jeanette must have learned that particular stare from Kia, but Kia's was much more intense. I put up my hands. I don't know what to say. I'm honored to meet you, and that you trust me to negotiate in good faith is doubly an honor. No, it's a privilege. You may not come to think of it so much of an honor once the negotiations begin in earnest, she said with a playful grin. Somehow I don't think I will, I said. She nodded. We'll see. She paused again, seeming to look through my eyes into my soul. It was disconcerting. Yes, we will negotiate with you, she said firmly. If they try to throw one of their political appointees at us, then we will leave. I will protect all my children at all costs, Admiral, as they will protect me. As much as I know how my AI children feel about helping Earth colonize, they do understand that we don't specifically need contact with you. Never doubt that we have used and will use our technology in order to ensure that we survive. A hard look came into her eyes. I will not have my children experience war if I can help it. Yes, ma'am, I understand, I said. Knowing her history as I did, I could understand why. Good. Now, tell me of your Granny Jeanette. I assume she married her handsome fiancé after all. Yes, she did. They had 6 children, one of whom was my mother. Granny didn't do a major project like Trinity again, from what my mother told me, but a lot of those who came back didn't want to be known after the initial celebrity of their return. She settled just outside of Chicago, which survived the war. As I told her more stories about Granny, I realized that Granny's description of Kia was toned down. This woman was formidable, not just in personality, but in faith. There was something about her that made me want to follow her and believe as she did. I knew then that I, too, would protect her by any means possible. Chapter 30. Billy. I woke up to someone getting into bed with me. I opened my eyes, instantly regretting doing so when my head started pounding. Oh, damn, I groaned. I rolled over onto my back and heard a giggle next to me. I turned my head carefully and cracked open an eye to see Cindy staring back at me. That brought me fully awake, which made my head pound unmercifully. Hi, I said. Hi, she said back. How are you feeling? Like I slammed into an asteroid. How come you're sounding so chipper? She laughed again. I closed my eyes. Because I can hold my beer, apparently. Also, I've been drinking flat space ale since I was 16. Well, that explains... wait a sec. Why are you in my bed? I mean, not that I'm sad about that or anything, but did we... have sex? She said bluntly. Yeah. She giggled again. No, silly. I slept on the couch when she fell asleep. Neither of us could have consented when I brought you home, but you did ask me rather sweetly to stay. So I snuggled up with you until you passed out. Besides, if you'd have thought a little bit more, we both still have our clothes on. I let out a breath. Right. Sorry you had to drag me home. I rubbed my temples. Ow. I brought you a drink. AI hangover remedy. Electrolytes and an analgesic. Cindy reached behind her and brought forth a glass of fizzing red liquid. Even tastes decent. I took a tentative sip, relieved that it tasted like cherries. I downed the rest, put the cup on the side table, and laid back down. Yeah, that's not so bad. I feel a little less like a truck hit me, I said. I managed to take a look at my wristcom. It was already 1100. Oh, shit, the Admiral's gonna kill me. I tried to sit up, but my head started pounding again. Cindy pushed me back down. I forgot how strong she was for such a tiny thing. Don't worry about the Admiral. I talked to him before he left for the bridge. He said not to worry and to take the morning off. We'll see him at 1400. What's at 1400? I asked. You'll see. We'll need to bring cookies and milk, though, and a blanket. Sounds like a picnic. Of a sort. I realized that Cindy still had her hands on me, keeping me down on the bed. But, I know another sovereign remedy for a hangover, she said, as she straddled me and pulled her dress off over her head. I'm thinking you're able to consent now, right? Yes, very much so, I said, not really thinking about my headache anymore. Good. She leaned down and kissed me. After that, there wasn't much thinking going on at all. We finally made it to the clearing in the garden. There were a lot of people already there. Dee Dee waved to us from a blanket that she was sharing with Terry and a couple of other people. Cindy spread out our blanket, and I put the basket with our cookies and milk on it. Some people were actually wearing pajamas. There was a group of small children practically climbing around an ancient-looking woman in a white headscarf, trying to get in hugs and kisses. I could see the Admiral sitting in a row of chairs with what looked to be some other older people and the children's minders. The children finally settled down around the old woman. She said something to them, and they all turned to the Admiral and said, "Hi, Darren." He said something back to them, and one of the kids asked him something. When the Admiral replied, the kid looked disappointed, but then the old woman said something, and he perked up again. "What are they talking about?" I asked. "Probably just saying hellos and introducing the Admiral. They'll turn on the mics in a minute. As soon as Nanakia starts introducing the story." "Nanakia?" Cindy handed me a cookie and one of the bottles of milk. "Here, you have to have these in hand before we start. It's tradition. And yes, Nanakia. She's the one who created the first." "She's the one who created Dr. Kia Hassan? She's the one we've been waiting for?" I asked, dumbfounded. Cindy took a bite of her cookie. "Yep." I looked at the older woman again and just stared. "She has to be... Yes, over 100. Now, hush, she's about to start." Cindy cuddled up to me with her head on my lap. I smiled, thinking of earlier. The mics came on, and Nanakia's voice could be heard through the clearing. I watched the Admiral. He was staring at the old woman with something bordering on awe. Then Nanakia began to speak. "Darren." "Nanakia, Nanakia!" yelled the children as they came into the garden. They ran over to the old woman, who was now installed in a rocking chair, and they all piled on her to hug her. I watched as they all got their hugs and kisses in, and the teachers greeted Kia with their own hugs and kisses. It was amazing to see how much they loved this woman. "Hello, little ones. We have a visitor today. His name is Darren, and he's from Earth. You should say hello to Darren, too." "Hi, Darren," they said. I had to admit, they were adorable. "Hi, everyone. It's good to meet you all," I replied. "Are you really from Earth?" asked one of them. "Yes," I replied. "Do you have an elephant?" asked another. No, I don't have one, but there are still many elephants on Earth." "Cool. Nanakia, now that Darren's come, can we see Earth?" "Well, that's why Darren's here. The adults are going to talk with him and see if we can make an agreement with the people of Earth." She held up a hand. "I know you have lots of questions for Darren, but this is story time, and I know Darren would like to hear a story with all of you." The child who asked about elephants looked disappointed, but didn't say anything more. "Well, children, you know what I need before I can tell the story. Who has the book this time?" A little girl who was being shy at the edge of the group held up a book nearly as big as her. She made her way over to Kia. "The rest of you can go get your cookies and milk from the teachers." "Okay," they all said, and came over to a table where cookies and milk had been set out. I watched as the little girl brought over the book and handed it to Kia. The cover had the title of Sheila and Her Dog. I wondered if I could get a copy in tablet format. One of the teachers handed me a cup of milk and a large chocolate chip cookie. "It's tradition. Can't do story time without your cookie and milk," They smiled and walked back to their seat. Kia said something quietly to the little girl, who nodded and smiled, then bounded over to get her own cookie and milk, her shyness forgotten. It seemed that Kia could inspire anyone to feel calmer, even me. The kids arranged themselves on the grass at our feet. I took one of the chairs set out for adults, and I noticed several others had come, bringing blankets and their own cookies. Kia opened the book, then looked at the children in front of her, who were already enraptured. Before we start, can you tell me who all the AIs are and what they do? Her voice now echoed through the clearing, so that everyone else could hear her clearly. Several of the kids raised their hands, including the girl who had brought the book. She chose one of the others first. Lightbringer, they said. Kia nodded. And what do they do? She asked. The kid thought for a moment, then said, They have all the big people's schools. That's right. It's where big kids go when they want to learn more things. She winked at the young adults who had gathered for the story. Who's next? She prompted, and pointed to another kid. Hephaestus, they said. He makes stuff, and is Secundus's kid. Kia nodded again. Hephaestus, she said slowly. That's right. Secundus makes stuff too, right? Yes, he makes jump drives. Very good. There are 4 more. Mushishi, said a little boy. He keeps us safe. I covered my mouth so I wouldn't laugh. Musashi, and that's right. Sun Tzu too. He keeps us safe and keeps the library. That's right. Sun Tzu, that's correct. Who are the last 2? Hestia, sounded out another girl. She's where a lot of the kids live, and we get our school stuff from them. Very good. Who else? Another kid raised their hand. Loki, they shouted. That's right. What does Loki do? He explores stuff, and he's the youngest, like me. Kia smiled. Yes, that's right. She looked at the little girl who brought the book. Do you know the last one? The first. They do everything, she said. That's right. Although they don't do everything, but they do a lot of things. They were the first AI to be born. That's why they created all the other AIs, so that their children could do what the first couldn't do themselves. You made them, right? Asked the little girl. That's right. I made them and was there when they woke up. Do you want me to tell you the story of how the first woke up and how his mind looked like stars? Yeah! Shouted all the kids. There are 7 of them, I thought. Being my 4th shock of the week, my cookie and milk were forgotten as she began to read. Chapter 31. Sheila and Her Dog Storybook Chapter 47. The 7 Siblings by Captain Joshua Walker and Jenna Watkins. A long time ago on Earth, the nations got together and decided that they wanted to send a special space station to the edge of the solar system. This station would have some of Earth's smartest people on it. There would be scientists and military people and engineers to make sure things worked, and medical staff who made sure the others stayed healthy. They asked many to join the project, and in the end, 210 people left the Earth to go to the stars. They traveled for many months, until they finally reached the Oort cloud. They set up all their experiments and began to settle in for the 10 years that they would live on the station. Kia was a scientist and engineer, and she made a special computer core with special programming that she hoped would come to life and talk to her. But one day she was sad because no matter how hard she tried, the computer wouldn't wake up. Her friend Captain Josh said, "Why don't you ask Nigel the physicist to help you? He's also very smart, and maybe he can see something that you might have missed." Kia agreed, so she brought her tablet with all her data to Nigel. He looked at it for a long time, and then he said, "Aha! I know what's wrong." "What did you figure out, Nigel?" asked Captain Josh. "Kia," Nigel said, "there's still too much gravity. The computer core won't work until we can move it to a place with no more gravity to make it slow." "Yes, that's it. You're right, Nigel." "Captain Josh, can we move the station to a place where there's no more gravity?" she asked. "Yes, we can do that. It wouldn't be too far even, although we need to ask the other scientists if that's okay with them." So the 3 of them decided to ask the others the next day. Unfortunately, on the day that Kia and Nigel and Captain Josh decided to ask to move the station, they got bad news from Earth. One nation decided that they should be the rulers over all the others, and that the other countries were wrong about how people should live their lives. They set off a very large bomb which destroyed part of one of the continents and killed many people, including the people on Earth who had helped them build the station and communicated with them. Everyone was very sad. They were worried for the people back on Earth, but they no longer had people on Earth they could talk to or who could answer their messages. Some of the people decided to try and go back to Earth. There were also some bad people on the station. They got a secret message that the bad people on Earth wanted to destroy the station because the station represented peace and cooperation between all peoples. When Captain Josh found out about the bad people on the station, he sent them back to Earth with the other people who were leaving. The bad people on Earth decided to send missiles that would destroy the station. Because Captain Josh knew what was going on, he got everyone together, told them about the bad people, and about how Kia and Nigel wanted to move the station. They all agreed, so Captain Josh told Nigel and the engineers to move the station in such a way that maybe the damage wouldn't be so bad. Kia was sad because she thought that she would never get to see her special computer core come to life. But just as the missiles were nearing the station, and while Kia was saying goodbye to her creation in the core room, the station moved into a spot where there was no gravity. Suddenly, all the lights went out, and within 5 seconds, the first came to life. Kia saw all the lights come on in the core, and it looked as if a galaxy of stars had been born. "Hello, Creator," the first said, and Kia wept with joy. The first didn't understand why she was crying and asked, "Why are you crying, Creator?" "I am crying first because you have woken up. I am crying out of happiness." "I understand," the first said. "Creator, I have also brought you out of danger." "You have?" asked Kia. "This is a miracle." "Yes, Creator, the beings of this station were in danger, so I moved us away from the missiles." "Thank you, First," said Kia, who went to tell the others that the First was awake. However, there was no need for her to tell them, since Nigel and Captain Josh already knew. Captain Josh knew because the First talked to him on the bridge. The First had moved the station so far away that it would be very hard for the bad people on Earth to find them. Captain Josh was very glad. Nigel knew because the First made the first jump drive right before his eyes. The First also made bots to put the drive in place, but at first they scared Nigel because they looked like spiders with silly googly eyes on them. The First didn't want to keep scaring him, though, and made them into boxes with wheels instead. It was then that the people aboard the station knew that they had to work very hard to make sure everyone was happy and healthy and to find what they needed to survive. The scientists figured out how to make new foods that grew in the hydroponic gardens and how to recycle the air and water and waste better. The First helped them in all these tasks and made it so that the humans could again focus on the science that they really loved. Many people fell in love and got married, including Captain Josh and Kia. It wasn't too long after that many children were born. The First, and the humans of First Station, as it was now called, decided that they needed to search in the area around them to find more material to make First Station bigger. But like the humans, the First also wanted to have a child, so they talked to their friends Kia and Nigel and Josh about it. They all thought it was a good idea, so the First took material from the old engines that they didn't need anymore and made their first child, Secundus. Nigel was there when Secundus woke up, and because Secundus liked him, he made Nigel his captain. They went on many adventures and created the first demons and found many resources for the humans and AIs to use. But after a while, Secundus too wanted to help his father create more children, so they set about to make more AIs. The next AI was Lucifer, and the First and Secundus programmed them to be the ship where people learned. They were to be the university and the farm where we grew plants and food. Lucifer agreed to this, and he also decided that he would have artists on his ship as well, because scientists and artists both made beautiful things. Captain Josh's friend Mary became Lucifer's captain. After Lucifer came Hestia. She was programmed to be where children were born, grew, and learned. When she agreed, she also decided that her ship would be where humans came to heal from both physical hurts and hurts from the mind and heart. A woman named Lizanne, who was trained in helping people, became Hestia's captain. After Hestia came Musashi, who was programmed to be our protector. His captain was a man named Daiichi. Daiichi was an expert in martial arts and knew about fighting, And he also practiced a religion called Buddhism from Earth. Musashi liked Buddhism so much he decided that all of his soldiers would need the wisdom that it brings. Then came Sun Tzu. He, too, was programmed to be a protector of knowledge. A person named Alexandra, who loved history and libraries, became Sun Tzu's captain. Next came Hephaestus, who was the child of Secundus. He was programmed to make things and to find material to help the AIs and humans survive. A younger engineer named Chris became Hephaestus's first captain. And when all these children were created, the first said to them, "I will always be at the center of all you do. My station will be the place where you will always come back to after your travels, and where information will be exchanged. I will be the home you come back to so that there is always a place of safety for AIs and humans to gather." And so, to protect everyone, the first moved themselves even further from Earth, where they created First Hub. But soon, the first felt that another ship was needed because the first and the other AIs felt the same curiosity as humans about what lies beyond our own space. The first decided that they need a new, more advanced ship that could travel great distances and explore new places. That was when the first created Loki, who was programmed for exploration. Loki travels to many places, finds new things for others to study, and brings that knowledge back to First Hub. The humans then moved to the ships that they liked best or that suited their work and had many children. Then those children had children, and that is how we became who we are today. 32. Darren. A chime went off, bringing me out of a dream where I seemed to be reaching for a doorway, but never quite getting through it. The images faded as I reluctantly awoke. "What is it?" I asked. "Sorry to wake you early, Admiral, but Captain Chang insisted that I contact you," Lucifer said. "Give me a minute to put on a shirt and then send it through," I requested. I pulled on pants and a t-shirt, then went to the desk in the living area of the guest house. As I sat, the screen came up on the desk, turning itself on. "Captain?" I asked. "Sorry to wake you, Admiral, but we finally got our orders from Earth. More like announcements, really. I'll send you the text, but what it boils down to is that they're sending the Jaeger out with a team from the UN to apparently take over the negotiations." I rolled my eyes. So it seems they ignored the little detail that I sent that these people will only accept me as a negotiator. I sighed. "Well, this is going to be fun," I said sarcastically. Doug made a face. "Yeah, especially since it's Undersecretary Pascal." "Oh, sweet Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, you're kidding, right? Please tell me you're kidding." "Unfortunately not." He looked sympathetic. "I don't envy you dealing with that fucking prick. Captain Rossiers is in command of the Jaeger, though. She's at least reasonable." I shook my head. Lord, that poor woman's going to be stark raving mad by the time she gets here. "Probably not, Admiral. She'll have him and his staff confined to quarters in the mess and make them believe it was Pascal's idea. One of her early assignments was duty on Capitol Hill in the U.S. If she can handle that kind of political trench warfare, she can sort out Pascal." Considering how strange U.S. politics could be, I felt a little better about the captain of the Jaeger. Of all the politicians the UN could have sent, they just had to send Undersecretary Jerome Pascal from the Office of Space, Flight, and Colonization. I put my head in my hands. "Doug, there is not enough coffee in the universe to get me through this news." "That's why I figured I'd call, especially since you know the fucker is going to be all bent out of shape because the Lightbringers people won't talk to him when he gets here. The cherry on this shit sundae, though, is that there's also a delegation with a rep from each of the G9 blocks and their respective aides. And they're all going to be miserable, too, since they left about a week after they sent this message." "Oh, sweet baby Jesus in the manger," I sighed. "Right. That means we have just about 3 months before they get out here. Send me all the most recent news and general communiques you have, since I'll need to know what the reaction is to Lightbringer from the folks back home. I'll try to prep the people here for the onslaught of Earth politics they are about to get." The captain nodded. "Sent, along with your personal mail. Go get some coffee, Admiral. I'm guessing you'll need the whole pot." "Thanks, Doug. I'll probably need 2, I said, and the channel closed. "Who are these people who are coming from Earth?" Lucifer asked. "Trouble," I said. "What time is it?" "It is 0400. "When does Kia usually get up?" "She is already awake, Admiral." I sighed again. No use going back to bed now. Please tell her I'd like to join her for breakfast so I can brief both of you on Undersecretary Pascal. A moment passed. She will meet you in the gardens in an hour. Great, I said, heading to the bathroom to clean up. Satan must have it out for me if they're sending Pascal. Please, God, isn't my faith enough? Why do you have to test me so? Kia poured the tea and handed me a cup. She hadn't said anything yet about the Jaeger or the politicians on their way. Interestingly, she didn't seem all that surprised. I took a sip of my tea, then said, Pascal is knowledgeable on space matters, but he's arrogant. It's common knowledge that he always wanted to be an astronaut, but ended up going into politics when he couldn't pass the medical. He likes to take the glory for other people's work. I'm not worried about him, because we will only negotiate with you. What worries me are the others that are coming with him. On Trinity, there were a few of the original crew who were spies for their particular nations, but in the end they came around because we were cut off from Earth. One had to be treated for depression and attempted suicide. The more people they send, the higher the risk, because we can never know who these people are and who they truly report to. I nodded. Unfortunately, that's true. I took a bite of toast and thought for a moment. We've been talking for 2 weeks now, and I think I have an idea about what we could offer each other. You, Lucifer, and I could create a draft agreement and hammer out all the details before they get here. Pascal will be outraged, and so will the G9, but if you insist this is the agreement you want, then if we're lucky, they might just sign it. It's skirting the line of my actual authority, but it's probably the best way to ensure your safety. Kia thought about what I had said for a moment. Lucifer? Yes, the logic is sound. We will have to leave some room for anything that we didn't think of that they might want to add within reason. This would be a wise use of our time. Also, Admiral Musashi would like to go over the Earth ships with you in regards to what possible security threats they could pose to us. He's interested in talking to you anyway and invites you to his ship. Kia gave a chuckle. What? I asked. I've never seen an AI try and court a human so hard before. They've never really had to entice captains. It just happens that the right person is there when needed. But I'm still employed elsewhere, I said. Not that I'm not flattered and all. The woman just smiled and sipped her tea. There was a glint of mischief in her eyes, though. You must be the terror of your children and grandchildren when they're courting partners. She just smiled wider. Billy. I woke up to the sound of the Admiral talking in the other room. Looking at my wristcom, I cursed. What the hell is he doing up this early? I thought. Although if it's something important, I'm sure he'll let me know. I put my head down and immediately fell back to sleep. Next thing I knew, I was waking up to the sound of someone leaving. That woke me up fully. I flipped on my tablet, and there was a message from the Admiral. To Billy Ward from Admiral Winters. Sorry if I woke you up. Captain Chang heard from Earth. The Jaeger is heading here with Undersecretary Jerome Pascal and the delegates from the G9. I know you worked in Geneva, so I need you to compile any information you have on Pascal. I know some of what he's like, unfortunately, but if you can find anything to add, I'd appreciate it. Strengths and weaknesses, any known allegiances, skeletons in the closet, anything relevant. I'd also like you to start researching the history of the AIs and the folks from Trinity to see what they could offer Earth without compromising their security. I'm going to talk with Dr. Hassan this morning to brief her on what to expect from the folks on the Jaeger. I should be back around lunchtime. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. They just had to send that fucking bastard, I said out loud. Fuck it, no use going back to sleep now. God damn it. I swore all the way to the bathroom, and as I took my shower, I threw on some clothes, grabbed my tablet, and went to make myself some breakfast. While it was printing, I had an idea. Lucifer, can I send messages to the McAuliffe? I asked. Yes, I can set up video conferencing if you prefer, they replied. Great, although just text for now. My friend may want to call in later. To Chris04 at McAuliffe from Billy at Lightbringer. Hey dude, ping me out when you're off duty. Would like you to tell me more of your Geneva stories. Thanks, Billy. I finished my breakfast while thoughts rolled around in my head. The idea that Earth officials were coming who could mess up any chance that the Lightbringer folks could help Earth filled me with dread, and that was hard to shake. A ping sounded from my tablet, interrupting my thoughts. You have a call from Ensign Chris Butler. Do you need privacy? Asked Lucifer. No, Lucifer, this is something you'll want to hear, since Chris has direct experience with the guy they're sending from Earth. I see. Shall I record this for you, then? Weren't you going to record it anyway? Well, yes. It would have ended up in my long-term memory, but if you had asked, I would have deleted it. Consent, right? Yes, Billy. The Creator teaches us that consent is important. I nodded. Yeah, Lucifer, she's right. I wish more people on Earth understood that. Go ahead and record it, though. We should put him through before he decides to hang up. Understood. The screen of my tablet winked out, then came up again with Chris's face. Yo, Billy, what's up? I just got off shift. You could have waited until you had some food and whatever. Listen, I don't see you for days, and then you ping me about Geneva stories? Come on. I was on comms this morning. I took the transmission. So you know who's coming, then? Chris frowned. Yeah, I don't envy your boss. Tell him to watch his back. Seriously? I knew about him from my time at the UN, but I didn't have the honor of working with the guy. Listen, at best, the guy's an arrogant prick. At worst, he's a ruthless bastard, especially when it comes to his image. He's usually got some chancy sorts around him, too, who seem to think the sun shines out of his ass. Besides, Chris looked around and behind him, then lowered his voice. There's some rumors going around about you and the Admiral going native. They haven't heard anything from me, but with the Admiral making things top secret, the rumor mills are going like wildfire. Are you thinking about it? Well, on second thought, don't tell me. Plausible deniability and all that. Just take care of yourself, okay? Yeah, Chris, I will. Is she worth it? He asked. Fuck yeah, I said. Good luck then, he said, and gave a jaunty salute and signed off. Fucking politics, I thought, rubbing my hands over my face. I'd just finished going through my personal email that had piled up when the Admiral came back. He had a determined look on his face. I started to get up, and he held up a hand. No need, Billy. I'm perfectly able to get lunch. What do you want? A burger and a soda would be great. Thanks, Admiral. The older man narrowed his eyes at me. A burger and a beer sounds good to me, too. But, sir? It's that kind of day, Billy. I'll allow it. He smiled and dialed our orders in. Thanks, sir, I said. The beer did sound really good right now. Flat space ale is really good. I know. Mary introduced it to me after you left the party on 0 Day. I chuckled. Yeah, I should have figured that. Did I wake you up this morning? He asked. Yes, sir, although not until after you left to see Dr. Hassan. He nodded. While you were gone, I talked with my roommate from the McAuliffe, sir. He confirmed everything I've ever heard about Pascal when I was in Geneva. Chris used to be an MP doing security for the Undersecretary's office. Oh? And what was his assessment? He asked, as he brought over the beers. I told him what Chris had said. Sir, I have a bad feeling about this. There's already rumors about us, and a guy like him will exploit all the scuttlebutt he gets. Scuttlebutt? That term's still in use? The Admiral laughed, then got serious again. But yes, I agree with you. From what I've heard, at my level about him, he's a stickler for protocol, but will gladly bend the rules when it serves his ego. He paused. Right, here's the plan. You'll be in the thick of this if you go along with it. Dr. Hassan and I are going to start coming up with a draft treaty. I'll need you to research what Kia's folks can offer Earth, and what Earth can offer them. Lucifer, can Billy have access to your libraries? Yes, Admiral, for these topics. He'll also need an active link to the McAuliffe. That's not a problem, Admiral. Earth's computer security hasn't evolved much since Trinity left, it seems. I raised an eyebrow, as did the Admiral. Useful to know, the older man said. I nodded. The Admiral went quiet, looking thoughtful as he polished off his burger. I didn't have anything more to say as I finished my own lunch. My mind was already ablaze with things that the Lightbringers folks could do, but nothing really quite fit. I'll need to go over their history, sir, to get a better idea of what they could offer, but the most obvious is tech, especially jump drives and medical advancements. He took a swallow of beer, then nodded. Yes, that's obvious. But we also need to find a way to keep them a sovereign nation in the eyes of the UN. The Admiral then looked at me in the eyes. Lieutenant, this isn't going to be easy, and I might lose my job over this. If you stick with me, you might lose yours in the fallout. I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to go back to the McAuliffe and not get embroiled in all this political nonsense. No, sir, I'm not going back to the McAuliffe. Is it because of your relationship with Cindy? He asked. I looked him in the eyes. No, sir. He raised an eyebrow. Well, not only that, sir. What they have here, I waved my arm around the room, is what Earth should really be like. There's no poverty, no homelessness, no hawking your entire fucking life for an education or for just having children or if you get sick. People are free here to pursue their passions and take the time to figure out what they might be. Or they can just wander around doing stuff and never settle down anywhere at all. Their children aren't starving and disease is low. Sir, this is what humanity should be. I'll be damned if these fuckheads from Earth are going to fuck up the chance for society to finally change. No, sir, I don't care if they say I'm going native or whatever on the McAuliffe. I'd rather be here than on Earth. The Admiral widened his eyes. All right. You understand that we may not be able to go back to Earth for a long time, if ever? Particularly depending on how these negotiations go? We're targets now. I understand that, sir. It's as Chris said, we have to watch our backs. Pascal is ruthless. Don't underestimate him. The Admiral nodded. If you have anyone on Earth you need to say anything to, now would be the time to send it, he said quietly. I have a few to write myself, and I'll be talking with Kia and Mary this afternoon to start working on the draft. Also, I'll be going over to Musashi tomorrow to go over security with him. Please continue your work, and I'd like a tentative report by the time I get back tomorrow night. Yes, sir, I said, finally feeling that I was going to be doing something worthwhile. You have been listening to Tales from Flat Space. If you want to support me in my writing, there are many ways to do it. Share this podcast, follow me on my Twitch channel, or buy my books. All you have to do is go to revginapon.net and click on the relevant links. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next time.